They say life settles down after 60. You know, soft evenings, quiet mornings, maybe a little gardening or baking if your hips don't complain too much. That's the story we're sold. But I'm here to tell you, sometimes life doesn't slow down. Sometimes it shifts in ways you never imagined. Before I begin, I just want to know, from which city are you watching this? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to see where my story reaches, because if you're like me, this could have happened to you too. Let me take you back to the night it all changed. My name is Emily. I'm 63 years old, divorced almost 2 decades ago, no children of my own, but always close with my sister's family, especially Daniel. He was always a sweet kid, curious, polite, and just warm. I babysat him often when he was little, and even as he grew into a young man, he never outgrew his tenderness. That smile of his could melt snow in January. Now Daniel had just turned 28. A grown man, sure, but to me still my nephew. Still that freckled boy who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during Sunday movies. At least that's what I told myself. But denial has a short shelf life. That summer evening, my AC had given out and the whole house felt like a slow-cooked oven. Daniel had texted earlier saying he was in town and wanted to stop by to check on me. I didn't think much of it. I was in a loose satin robe sipping iced tea and fanning myself on the back porch. When he arrived, I hadn't seen him in nearly a year. My breath caught the moment he walked through the gate. He was no boy anymore. He'd filled out taller, broader shoulders, that unshaven jawline dusted with a shadow that looked far too adult. He wore a simple white t-shirt, a bit damp from the heat, clinging to his chest. I could smell his colon even in the breeze. Still keeping this place beautiful, Aunt Emily. He smiled, setting a paper bag down with groceries he brought for me. I laughed softly. And you're still trying to spoil me. He sat beside me on the porch swing, wiping his brow. Hot as hell tonight. That's an understatement, I said, shifting slightly, suddenly aware of how thin the silk of my robe was. We talked for an hour, maybe more, about life, his job, how my arthritis was acting up. But there was something different in the air. Some quiet undercurrent we both felt but didn't name. Every time I looked at him, he was already looking at me. And not in the casual nephewish way. It was subtle, a gaze that lingered a beat too long, the way his fingers brushed mine when he handed me my glass, the quiet way he said my name. Emily. I don't know if it was the heat, the loneliness, or just the way the stars looked that night, but something inside me stirred. Not just attraction. No, that would be too simple. It was a recognition of something buried, a longing I'd silenced for years. He stood up, stretched, and looked out into the dark. Can I stay here tonight? His question caught me off guard here. You don't have your place. He smiled sheepishly. Long story. Rented it out while I'm away. Just figured I'd crash on the couch. That's okay. Of course I said yes. But as the night wore on and the air got heavier, my thoughts didn't calm. I lay in bed, unable to sleep. My room was warm. My robe had slipped halfway open. And I felt exposed, not just physically, emotionally. As if something inside me was unlocking slow and quiet. A soft knock came at the door. I pulled the robe together quickly, heart fluttering. Yes, it's me, came his voice. Can I talk to you for a minute? My breath hitched. I opened the door just a crack. There he stood, shirtless now, towel in hand, skin damp from a shower he must have taken downstairs. Sorry, I just couldn't sleep, he said. Can I come in for a sec? I hesitated, then nodded, stepping aside. He walked in slowly, eyes scanning the room, then settling on me. It's nice in here, he said quietly. Cooler. We stood in silence, barely a few feet apart. I always felt safe around you, he said suddenly, eyes soft. You've always been the one person I could talk to. The only person who made me feel seen. My heart ached at his words because I knew that feeling. Daniel, I whispered, voice cracking. Your family, of course you feel safe. He shook his head gently. No, it's more than that. And then he stepped closer. Everything in me screamed that this was wrong. And yet nothing about it felt forced. His touch was light. His fingers traced the edge of my hand like asking a question, seeking permission. I could have pulled away. I could have told him to stop, but I didn't. I stood there letting his warmth wrap around me. That moment didn't end with anything explosive. No grand gestures, no decisions, just quiet tension. A shared look, and the beginning of a line neither of us knew we'd crossed until now. That night didn't end with answers. It ended with the door gently closing behind him, and me sitting on the edge of my bed, breathless and wide awake, realizing everything had changed. Not with a storm but with a whisper. The morning after didn't feel real. I woke up tangled in sheets that felt too warm for the season, and a head full of thoughts I couldn't unravel. The house was still, golden light slipping through the blinds, like it had no idea what had shifted in the air just hours before. I listened for sounds. A creak, a mug clinking in the kitchen, a cough, but nothing came. For a moment I wondered if I dreamed at all. That look in Daniel's eyes, his voice so close, his fingers grazing mine, the way my breath caught when I almost leaned into him. Almost. I slipped out of bed and pulled my robe tighter around me. Even though the house was silent, my body still buzzed with the energy of the night before. My chest, my neck, even my fingertips felt awake in a way they hadn't in years. When I reached the hallway, I saw him. He was at the kitchen sink, shirt back on, hair still damp, humming something under his breath. There was a gentleness in how he moved, the way he poured coffee, leaned against the counter and stared out the window. He turned as if he knew I was there. "Morning," he said, voice still thick from sleep. "I made coffee." I nodded. "Thanks." We stood there, quiet again but not awkward, just charged. I sat at the table while he poured me a cup, and when he sat it in front of me, our fingers touched again. Barely, but enough. "Did you sleep okay?" I asked. He smiled. "Not really." Neither did I. He took the seat across from me, cupping his own mug, and for a moment we just listened to the birds outside, the distant hum of a lawn mower, the drip of the faucet. I thought about what I said. He finally murmured, "And I hope I didn't make you uncomfortable." That caught me off guard. Because he had, but not in the way he thought. "I wasn't uncomfortable," I said slowly. "Just surprised." His eyes searched mine. "I've always loved you, Emily, but something's changed. I see you differently now. And maybe it's wrong. Maybe it's confusing, but I can't lie about it." A rush of emotions tightened my chest. Fear, guilt, curiosity, warmth. I looked down at my coffee. "You're young, Daniel. And I'm well, me." "You're not just anyone," he said, voice from her. "Now you're strong. You're beautiful. You're the most present person I've ever known." My throat tightened. "You don't have to say those things," I whispered. "I'm not saying them for you," he replied. "I'm saying them because I need to." I didn't know what to do with that. Compliments at my age feel different. They don't land like flattery anymore. They land like truth or trouble. And his voice, so sure, so sincere, was not the voice of a boy with a silly crush. It was a man trying to say something his soul needed to release. After breakfast, we pretended to carry on like normal. I worked on sorting some boxes in the attic and he helped carry them down. We rearranged the old photo albums on the shelves. He smiled at the pictures of himself as a kid. I laughed when we found one of me in the 80s with feathered hair and turquoise eyeliner. "You were something back then," he said, grinning. I shot him a look. "I still am." He didn't laugh. "You really are." I didn't know how to answer that. Later that afternoon, I was sitting in the den, flipping through an old book when he came in and sat next to me. Not too close, just enough. "I leave town tomorrow," he said. That hit me in a place I didn't know was sensitive. "For how long?" "Few weeks, maybe a month." "Oh." He looked at me, his knee grazing mine. "I don't want to go without knowing where we stand." "Daniel," I started, but my voice faltered. "You don't have to decide anything. I'm not asking you to label this. I just want honesty." Honesty. Sounded so simple. I set the book down. "I care about you a lot. And what happened last night. The way you looked at me, the way I responded. It wasn't nothing, but I'm scared." He nodded. "Me too. People wouldn't understand." "I'm not asking them to. I'm asking you to." His hand reached for mine again. Gentle, patient. "I don't see you as just my aunt anymore. I haven't in a long time." And there it was, the confession, plain, unvarnished, and utterly terrifying. I didn't pull away. I didn't run. But I didn't fall into his arms either. "I need time," I said softly. He nodded, lips pressed together, emotions flickering across his face. "Take all the time you need," he whispered. That night after he'd gone to bed, I walked past the guest room. The door was ajar. I could hear him breathing soft and steady. I stood there for a long time, just watching, just feeling. And when I finally turned to go, I didn't feel shame. I felt something beginning, something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. Not lust, not recklessness, but the dangerous, beautiful edge of possibility. The house felt strangely hollow. The next morning, Daniel had already left early before sunrise. I found a note on the kitchen counter. Simple, careful handwriting I recognized immediately. Thank you for letting me stay. I meant every word. I'll call you soon. I stood there staring at that small square of paper like it had more to say if I just held it long enough. My thumb ran across the edges of his writing again and again. My heart ached, but not in the way it used to in my younger years. Not that wild, panicked ache of being left behind. This was quieter, heavier. It wasn't just about him. It was about the way he made me feel, about the mirror he held up to me without even trying, about the parts of myself I hadn't spoken to in years. And now that he was gone, all I could do was sit with those parts. For the next week, I tried to distract myself. I cleaned, baked too many loaves of banana bread, rearranged the living room, even started repainting the back porch. Anything to keep from thinking too long, too deep. But every quiet moment brought him back. That touch of his hand on mine, the way he said my name like it was fragile, the way his eyes saw me. Not as a woman defined by her age or her role in his family, just as Emily. My phone buzzed one afternoon while I was pruning my dying geraniums. Daniel. I wiped my hands on my shirt and answered quickly. Hi. His voice was soft on the other end. Hey, you sound out of breath. Just out in the garden. He chuckled. Still keeping things blooming, huh? I leaned against the porch railing trying. There was a pause, not awkward, just full. I keep thinking about that night, he said quietly. Not in a reckless way. I just can't stop wondering what would have happened if I'd stayed a little longer, or if I kissed you. My breath caught. Daniel, I know I'm not trying to push, he said. But I've never felt so sure about something and at the same time so scared. That made two of us. I've been thinking too, I admitted, not just about what almost happened but about why it even crossed my mind at all. About what it means about me. He didn't say anything right away. I heard the sound of traffic, then a car door closing. I'm coming back this weekend, he said. A few days early. I want to see you. I should have said no. I should have told him to take more time to let things cool down, but I didn't. Okay, I whispered. The next few days were a blur of nerves. I cleaned the house more than necessary, changed the sheets in the guest room, and stood in front of my closet too many times, wondering if I should wear something that made me feel more alive. When he arrived Friday evening, I met him at the door. He didn't bring groceries this time. He brought flowers, soft peach roses with petals curled like whispers. You didn't have to, I said, taking them with a trembling hand. I wanted to, he replied, stepping inside. We sat on the porch again like that first night. The heat had broken. Now it was cooler with a breeze that carried the scent of cut grass and pine. He looked out into the yard, hands clasped. You're quiet. I'm thinking about. I turned toward him. Us? He nodded, eyes not leaving mine. I still don't know what this is, I said softly. I don't have the answers, but I know what I feel when I'm with you. He leaned in a little, not enough to invade, but enough that I could feel the pull between us. Then tell me. I looked down at my lap, then back at him. I feel seen, wanted, and terrified. Because the last time I felt this much, I was half the woman I am now. You're not half of anything, he said gently. You're more. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of electricity, like something waiting for permission. Then he stood and offered his hand. Come with me. I hesitated only a moment, then placed my hand in his. He didn't take me far, just into the living room, where the light from the setting sun spilled across the rug like honey. He sat down on the couch and pulled me gently beside him. We didn't speak. He turned, brushed a loose strand of hair from my cheek, and let his fingers linger there. That was the moment when I leaned in first. Our lips met, soft, uncertain, but with a depth that caught both of us off guard. It wasn't a kiss born of lust. It was something else entirely. A claiming of space, a quiet rebellion against time. I pulled away first, breath trembling. This doesn't make sense. Maybe not, he said, forehead resting against mine. But it feels right. We stay at that for a long time, wrapped in something unnamed, something delicate. When the sun disappeared and the room dimmed to shadows, he whispered, I don't want to go back to pretending. And neither did I. That night he slept in the guest room again. But the door between us, it wasn't closed this time. Days after that night, something shifted in me. Not just in the way I looked at Daniel, but in the way I looked at myself. It wasn't some overnight transformation. I didn't wake up suddenly fearless or 20 years younger. No, I still had my morning aches, still made my tea the same way, still watched the same weathered birds come to my window feeder. But inside, something had cracked open. Something that had been sealed shut for years. I was remembering who I was before the world told me what boxes I belonged in. And Daniel, he was still here. Not with grand declarations or sweeping gestures. Just present, helping around the house, cooking us breakfast one morning like it was the most natural thing, leaving his toothbrush quietly beside mine without asking. One evening a week later we were in the kitchen. He was leaning against the counter barefoot, sleeves rolled up, peeling potatoes for dinner. I was watching him, trying not to smile too obviously. "You're staring," he said without looking up. "No, I'm observing." He smirked. "Big difference." "Huge," I said, crossing my arms. He tossed a potato peel at me and I laughed. A real laugh, the kind I didn't even know I still had in me. After dinner we took a walk just down the street and back. Nothing fancy. But the sky was painted in gold and lavender. And his hand found mine without hesitation. "You ever think about what people would say?" I asked quietly as we passed a neighbor's garden. "All the time," he said. "But they don't know you." "Not like I do." I glanced at him, unsure. Still, it's hard not to feel judged before anything even happens. I don't care about judgment. I care about truth. I stopped walking. "So what's our truth?" Then he turned to me. "That I'm here. That I want to be here. And that I care about you in a way that's not temporary or confused." I felt my chest tighten again. That vulnerable place that still didn't quite believe it. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Good," he said, stepping closer. "So am I. That means it's real." We stood under a street lamp, the light soft and warm above us. He brushed his thumb along the back of my hand, and for the first time in a long time, I felt no need to pretend I didn't need comfort or touch or to be chosen. Later that night, back at the house, I sat on the porch while he showered. The air smelled like grass and lilacs. I rocked gently on the swing, sipping chamomile, when the door creaked open behind me. He stepped out, damp hair, clean shirt, a look in his eyes that made my breath pause. "Come inside," he said softly. "I want to talk." I followed him in, unsure what the moment would hold. He didn't take me to the living room this time. He went to my room. He stood there for a second, then sat on the edge of my bed and patted the spot next to him. "I want to ask you something," he said. I sat beside him, palms folded in my lap. "Okay. If I stayed," he said slowly, "not for a few nights or a visit, but really stayed, would that be something you'd want?" I blinked. "Here in this house?" "No, in your life." I felt the ground beneath me shift. Because in all my years, no one had ever asked me that question like it was an offer instead of an obligation. I turned toward him. "You know it wouldn't be easy." He smiled. "I don't want easy. I want you." I reached for his hand, held it, felt its warmth, felt its promise. And in that moment I made peace with every fear, every wrinkle, every echo of doubt in my chest. Because what we had wasn't about rules. It wasn't about roles. It was about presence, about timing, about the strange way life weaves stories when you think your pages are already written. That night, I let him stay in my room. We didn't rush. We didn't tumble into anything reckless. We lay side by side, hands linked, eyes on the ceiling. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel like someone's aunt. I felt like a woman, a whole one, wanted, seen, heard, and deeply, wonderfully alive. Now, when I think back to that first night, the way he knocked, the way he lingered in the doorway, I realize that wasn't the beginning of something forbidden. It was the beginning of something rare, something honest. He was just my nephew until that night changed everything between us. And I'm not afraid of what comes next anymore.